Welcome everyone. I'm now calling this meeting to order. Please stand with us. We led in prayer of Alderman Gallagher. Please remain standing after that for the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Alderman Payne.
Heavenly Father, we come before you once again to ask for your blessings on our meeting, Lord. Lord, we thank you for this special time of year, for a special Savior, a special man who lived a special life and died a special death, Lord. And we thank you for that. And Lord, we ask that we would demonstrate Christ's actions in everything we say and think and do. And so, Lord, we ask you tonight to be with us, to bless our meeting, to bless the city of Southaven. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda this evening is the approval of minutes for the November 19, 2019 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th, 2019 with any additions, deletions, or corrections.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Hughes?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Southampton Fire Department contract with Renew Biomedical. Mr. Nick Manley.
This is the contract with Renew Biomedical for regular scheduled maintenance for their the equipment for the Southampton Fire Department. So tonight, just need authorization for Chief Skaggs to sign the contract with Biomedical for the maintenance for the equipment, and also didn't have to get out because it is for preventive maintenance. So.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we enter into a contract with Renew Biomedical and allow for Chief Skaggs to sign.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Hoots. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Hughes?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for Lien.
Yeah, this contract, this resolution is just for buying of liens for those properties, and that will be turned later into assessments for the tax season for next year for the properties condemned under 21-19-11.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution of the Mayor Board of Aldermen of the City of Southaven adjudicating the cost of cleaning property, imposing a penalty, and imposing a lien on the same as property as presented on this date.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion among the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that has a financial interest in any of the properties that would like to speak? Hearing or seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Hughes?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Medline agreement.
Yeah, there's just one agreement tonight. We're working on another one still, but this is the one agreement is the Medline agreement, the fee in lieu of taxes. This agreement will set forth the rates or the fees that they'll pay in lieu of taxes, provided that they meet the required jobs as set forth in the DIP grant MOU. It also has a mechanism in there if they don't meet 70% of the jobs that the fee in lieu can be suspended and then put back in place once that 70% is met. They're between 70 and 90% of the jobs. There is a formula as set forth in the agreement which they'll then pay the fee in lieu and on that based on that percentage as opposed to the actual full tax rate. So tonight we just need authorization for the mayor to sign the fee in lieu. It was approved by the Southampton County yesterday. So tonight we bring this for authorization to the mayor and then we'll have another agreement at the next meeting. Now I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion?
And I'll draft a resolution for the mayor to sign for this and be in your minutes for approval at the next board meeting.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Lee.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. There is no planning agenda this evening, is that correct? Next on the agenda is mayor's report. I'm not going to go back tonight through all we know that we have a large number of projects that are pending. No need to update. They're moving along as planned. No negative updates on any of the current projects. Everything is moving along smoothly. The landscape maintenance contract, there was some discussion in a recent meeting about doing another RFP for those contracts. Those contracts do expire at the end of this year. If we don't have another contract, or if we do an RFP, those contractors will continue on doing what they're doing throughout the winter months. Obviously, with some of those, it's scaled down because you don't have the growing season in the winter months. But anyway, just want to bring that back up to the board. If it's your desire to RFP these contracts, then it's my recommendation that either at the next meeting or the first meeting in January that we go ahead and authorize that. Unless someone wants to make a motion to do that tonight, I'm going to just take direction from you. But the contracts do expire at the end of December, so we do need to make a decision one way or the other, either this month or the first meeting in January. Any discussion or comment about that? Okay. Okay. All right, but anyway, just again, putting that on your radar, be thinking about that. The other thing, we've had some discussion, state law, I don't know that the law has changed as much as the interpretation of some law has changed regarding public meetings as it relates to committees and special meetings. So we had a question this week. We were trying to set up a committee meeting to discuss potential ordinance changes, and we had a question come up from a board member about why we chose to schedule a committee meeting as opposed to a special meeting. So tonight, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And again, like I mentioned, it makes no difference to me if we do a special meeting or a committee meeting. So I'm just going to, again, take direction from the board on how you would prefer to do this. But first of all, Nick, would you please, as you've done for me, would you please make it clear for everyone the difference in a committee meeting and a special meeting?
A committee meeting they're both open to the public, obviously, committee meeting and a special meeting. A committee meeting is not a quorum, obviously, and so you would still open it to the public, advertise it like we've done in the past, and then you keep your minutes in the committee meeting and approve it. A special meeting, if you have 4 aldermen who are all participating, you actually have a special meeting at that point, and so you would then advertise it as a special meeting, which requires the posting of the website, and the official minutes for the clerk to be attending for to take the minutes. So you can do it either way. You can have special meetings as opposed to committee meetings, or you can have a committee meeting as opposed to a special meeting. They're both open to the public. Technically, under a recent AG opinion, you can have a committee meeting with a 4th alderman attending or multiple aldermen attending who are not on the committee. They just can't participate or speak in the meeting because that would then constitute a quorum for a special meeting. So the difference is the notice provisions and how you keep the minutes and the approval. So if you want to have a committee meeting, you would just do it as we've done. Keep advertising it, keep your minutes, have those minutes approved at each next committee meeting. If you want to have more than 3 aldermen participating, you would have a special meeting, and then you would notice it just like you would any other special meeting, which would then allow you to have a quorum and only talk about the actual subject that's on that special meeting agenda. So a committee meeting doesn't necessarily have those rules as far as, there's really not a procedural mechanism for a committee meeting as far as what you can talk about. But the special meeting, there is statutory definitions that say you can only talk about what is actually set forth on the agenda. So that's the difference. So like as the mayor said though, neither way is right or wrong. You can do it however the board may want to do it is fine.
And one thing I'll add to that is we did start, 3 years ago, we started, when we started having budget hearings, we started, instead of having Finance Committee, we started doing the budget meetings as a special meeting. The purpose of that was because when you're dealing with the budget, that's something that there's so many line items, so many questions that come out, that we felt like it was going to be better, to have every one of the board members present, rather than getting information relayed secondary, and that way you could be active in the discussion. So that's why we did it that way. So I think that there's some topics that, are better served, as a committee. And again, it's not, trying to hide anything from the public or anything like that. Basically, what it is there's some things that are so green in the discussion that you really, if you have people that want to come ask questions, or if you had a special meeting, you really don't, the board hasn't had enough time, and myself, we haven't had enough time to even discuss the issue enough to be able to speak intelligently about it. We're kind of in the research mode ourselves. So to me, that's what I always viewed a committee was useful for, is, the beginning stages of an issue, and then we would move forward, into a special meeting, at a later time. But again, that's the board's call. It makes no difference to me, but I do need direction. So I need to know. So if we're going to, do it that way, we just need to, make the, changes accordingly. So is there someone on the board that would either make a motion or give me some direction on which way they think we should go? And then if we can get a full, I'd like to hear from every board member either by vote. So if somebody will make a motion and then make a second on how they would like to see us proceed, that would be useful and efficient for us time-wise tonight. Alderman Hoochie.
Yeah, I personally would like to see it, kind of flexible, so then, if it's a topic that we may want to have more than just the three there, we can make it a special meeting, but if it's just a routine something, then, it's not a big, either way, you're gonna have the public there, so, there's gonna be people observing, and, they need to understand about, if they're at the meeting, we're gonna have to explain, this is new to us, where, like you said, it's green, we're not, we're not gonna make any decisions today.
Right.
So, I think either way, and either one of you will have that same kind of complication. So I'd like to see us have it kind of flexible. If it's a topic that some of us want to be there to talk about, then yeah, we could. That's my only suggestion.
Okay, I appreciate your.
All it makes it going to get 7 aldermen plus you, so we have seven aldermen, 7 different, that aren't full time. So trying to get everybody on the same page, it's a little difficult, but I like Alderman Hooks' recommendation. If it's, depending on what we're doing, we can kind of go from there. I think when it comes to ordinances and whatnot, it's kind of good to hear. A lot of times you just want input from the board members, kind of hear each ward. But it's not necessarily needs to be a full meeting until we get towards the end. So.
Let me ask the question a different way. Is there anyone that would prefer a committee? Do y'all want to just change it and do them all?
I prefer we do committees. I like the idea of the committees. I don't think everybody can get off for every issue that needs to be spoken about. And regardless, it's not going to be decided upon in the committee. You've still got to bring it before the board and vote on it, and that's when it's, a bigger, broader discussion can be made at the meeting.
I agree with all the things.
Okay. Well, and again, that's what we've used it for in the past, is just to have the initial discussions and then, later bring it before the full board.
I understand the budget piece, but that's more of a work session for us than it is really a committee meeting, because it's giving everyone the opportunity to ask questions of the department heads and look over stuff like that.
Right, and I will, more specifically, I'll tell you about the budget hearing. One of the reasons we did that is, and this has been, 4 or 5 years ago at least, but we did it, and then when the budget was presented to the full board, there was a comments by more than one alderman. There were 2 aldermen one year that indicated that they never were aware of a certain budget line in that discussion, and they asked, well, who made that decision? Well, in a budget, when we approve a budget and talk about it, every single dollar in that budget is open for discussion. So if an alderman said, hey, look, I don't want to spend $10 on this, all you got to do is make a motion, get a second vote on it, and we strike that out of the budget. It would take us forever to do that. Please don't do that to us, but we could do that if y'all, but for an alderman to say, well, I never got a chance to talk about that or to look at that. That's why we did the special meeting.
I agree, I agree, it was a good decision.
But I do, again, I see that's why, with committees, it's, especially with an ordinance, as y'all seen in public meetings, when someone comes to question an ordinance, we're listening, but it's really, nothing's gonna change tonight. We gotta go back and do our own homework, and do our own research to make sure before an ordinance is proposed to be changed, that it's something that, is gonna have a good effect on the city, as a whole, so. So is there, let me ask it a third way, is there anyone that's opposed to us having committee meetings unless it's a situation where it's a second or third discussion, we feel like it has unusual circumstances that needs to be a special meeting?
No.
Is there anybody that opposes a committee? Okay. And then that leads to the next thing, the committees, it becomes a little bit challenging when you're scheduling that, since you can only have 3 there, Christy. We have to work, when you're trying to work around 8 different schedules, and that's a great point by Alderman Brooks. I mean, the aldermen have different work schedules, so when we're trying to do that, we need to know like who's coming, and the way it's always been done in the past is we always name committees. So those are the people that came to the committees. Well, recently we've had some dialogue from aldermen that want to come to committees that they're not a part of. So I'm at a loss. Y'all help me out. How do y'all want to do that?
I think we really just leave it flexible, like, it is now. I mean, if something happens, if one of the 3 are not showing up, you can fill in. If it's something that you feel really adamant about, you want to be there, say, hey, Mayor, let's talk to them about it. Maybe we can have a discussion.
Right. What I'm saying though is I don't have time, and Christy doesn't have time to poll 8 aldermen. We need to know. That's what a committee is for, because we know who's going to be there, and we send that out to that committee depending on what the topic is. So it can work that way, but the thing is we're going to need to know who's coming and who's not, because you can't have 4. You see what I'm saying? So like if one alderman can't make the committee meeting and another wants to fill in for them, we just need to know who that is and whose place that they're taking. Does that make sense? So is the board still, y'all good with doing committees, and just let Christy know? Y'all understand that time isn't, we need to know that because it gets complicated trying to, work schedules. Is everyone good with that? Will you please speak up if
The
you're
way
not
we're
good with
doing
that?
this seems pretty simple to me. I mean, if we want to have a special meeting, we can.
Yeah.
Just,
It's never been a problem before. It's worked well. But I'm just saying, like I said, it was brought to my attention that it wasn't like how we wanted it. So I just want to make sure that I respect the wishes of the board. Okay. So the way that leaves us, we'll still have committees where appropriate. If you're on that committee, I'm asking you to, if you're not going to be there, you can't make it, to let us know immediately, and then let us know which board member is going to be taking your place. That way we'll make sure that we, don't have a quorum. Is that fair enough?
Fair.
Okay, awesome. All right, the next on the agenda, one other issue while we're talking about this, I want to bring up, and like I said last meeting, it's never been a problem before, but it started to somewhat kind of go in that direction. I alluded to it last time. And I want Nick to explain this to everyone. I know we're being videotaped, so Nick can explain it. I always err on the side of letting people talk. I know that the board meetings get a little bit lengthy sometimes when we have a long citizens agenda, and then like last meeting when people want to come speak on every issue, there has to be a limit to that, or else you can't really, you can't plan the meeting, and that's not really what a board meeting is. A board of aldermen meeting, and I'm gonna let Nick. I tell you what, Nick, will you do this? You're gonna say it better than I will. Will you explain to everyone in attendance the difference between a public hearing and a board of aldermen meeting? That's state law.
A public hearing takes place within a board of aldermen meeting, but a board of aldermen meeting, mayor and board basically decide who speaks at what point. So typically the way it would be is the mayor and board have in our case, we have a citizens agenda, which you can allow people to speak during that citizens agenda. And then while the mayor and board are doing the actual board meeting itself, that's not the public hearing time. The public hearing will be denoted on the agenda. So once the meeting has started, the mayor and board then have complete control over the agenda and time when someone speaks. So, for example, you have a public hearing, you could then let anyone come to the microphone who wants to speak on that certain issue, or you wait for the citizens' agenda to speak on that certain issue. But it wouldn't, the mayor and board don't have to recognize anyone who speaks without being on the agenda and or speaks during the meeting on a topic that hasn't been open for public hearing or is not on the citizens' agenda. That being said, the mayor and board can always authorize it, allow it, but there's nothing that requires it, and there's nothing that requires the mayor and board to actually allow anyone to speak. I think this mayor and board have always allowed everyone to speak, though I don't know if there is any time when they haven't, but unless it comes to a personnel issue, and then a lot of times you have some issues if you did that out front anyway. So it's more of the AG's interpretation on how that works as far as a board meeting goes. The difference between a hearing and the meeting itself. The hearing is the time when people can speak and consistently on the same topic, and then the actual meeting itself would be just a time for the mayor and board. So, for any questions now, obviously the mayor and board have complete control over that and issue. If any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to try and answer those as well.
Well, and again, like I said, it's never been a problem before, and I love to, if I'm gonna err on the side of letting people speak, but we are ultimately, we're a representative republic form of government, which means that the people that are sitting up here have been elected to make decisions on behalf of the people. Every issue that we talk about is not one that we invite, if the public wants to say something, then they should contact their aldermen and share their opinions, but we're a representative republic form of government, so the aldermen represent the people of their ward, and so it's just not practical for us. I want to be fair. It's not practical for us to allow everyone to speak on every issue that's on the agenda, if that makes sense. But anyway, I just want to let that out there. It's, like I said, I want it to be fair. We're not going to have outbursts in the meeting anymore. We're going to have a citizens agenda where citizens can speak, but there's not going to be an outburst yelling from the crowd every time we have something on the agenda. Any comments, questions about that?
I think one of the concerns that I had heard was saying that, we go through our agenda, and by the time the citizens' agenda comes up, we've already voted on everything, and if somebody wanted to speak on it or something like that, they're saying that opportunity's already passed. I think that's what their concern was.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the answer to that would be.
Well, the answer is that again, you're a representative of public form of government. The answer is if you have something you want to share, you share that before the vote, So, but it's just not, we're not going to let the meeting, I guess what I'm saying is we're going to run the meeting in a professional way. We're going to be respectful of everyone's time, and we're not going to have public outbursts in the meeting. I do have the authority to make that decision. I'm going to make that one. We're not going to have public outbursts. So if someone wants to speak, it's going to be on the citizens' agenda. Okay, we'll move on. Next thing tonight, last minute we did, it was brought to my attention this morning that we have a potential change order for the Greenbrook training facility. Brian Bullard with Urban Art and Dan Cordell are both involved in this because it is related to a soil issue there. So if, we'll let them speak and kind of update the board on what the issue is.
Mayor, board, I do apologize. We were last minute getting the information, and it's, believe it or not, it's still not complete. We're trying to wrap up the project. But we wanted to get it on this agenda so we can close it out in between hopefully this and the next board meeting. And the reason he didn't get it out on his agenda is we didn't get the information until Wednesday of last week. So we were a little late to get it to you, if you want to kind of summarize.
Yeah.
I did a poor job of explaining it to the mayor earlier, so
Oh, you did a good job.
Okay. Mayor, board, hello. So this is the Greenbrook softball complex, and what we're trying to do is get the job closed down, as Dan had mentioned. At the beginning of the project, we ran into the dirt issue of basically the soil at the time when they wanted to put their foundations in was pretty much unbuildable because of wetness, okay? At that point in time, Dan and Civil Link gave us and the contractor advice to dry the soil in lieu of digging the soil out and replacing it, which is called undercutting. So at that time, it did take us a little bit of time to come to the final resolution as to what we wanted them to do and why we felt that this would be in y'all's best interest. Okay, so we made the recommendation to the contractor to dry the dirt in lieu of undercutting the dirt. That took some time for us to get them a construction change directive to start that work, to give them the issue and the command to do the work. So it's currently being negotiated. My office and Dan's office are collaborating to negotiate with the contractor on how many days that he's actually due for that delay at the beginning of the project. And in conjunction with those days, the contractor is typically paid for general conditions of any extension of his contract that was due to any fault of his own. So we do believe this was an unforeseen condition that the contractor could not have foreseen. They ran into the wet dirt. Dan's company recommended the drying of the dirt. That delayed the contractor to begin the contract. We do believe they are due some time and some money on behalf of that issue. But I will tell you and stress this, that ultimately you guys, the city comes out on top because his first reaction, contractor's first reaction, was to do undercut. And I think he presented us with a $30,000 some odd change order, plus however many days it was going to take him to do it. So he still would have gotten days and general conditions on top of that. As it is now, we're asking the board to, we're recommending, I believe it's, I got the number, up to $18,000 change order. And that's as far as we think it'll ever get. We actually believe that we're going to be able to negotiate something lower than that because of the position that we're in.
Dan, will you briefly explain the difference between this drying and the undercutting?
Yeah, and one other thing, the reason the dates are coming up now is at the end of the contract, if he had done it all within his contracted time frame, the delay time or the claim for additional time and the payment for it would not have been a part, wouldn't have been needed. So we had to wait till the contract time was essentially used up to evaluate what the impact of the dirt was to his overall time, which is why the days are coming up now. The undercut issue, he did it under normal conditions. If normal conditions being what you would typically do for a slab. This actually was a pretty complex site that actually, if y'all recall, got moved twice because of some bad conditions of the soils that were in that area. But we were limited as to where the facility could go. So we gave indication of some bad soils. Actually, it was worse than some of the bores that we got. Wasn't as bad as the first site. It was still doable. The structure was designed to bridge over it. But him having work access to get the foundation started required him to travel and have a certain amount of density and dry dirt. His first response from his geotech and his contract was to come in and undercut 2 to 3 feet of the entire facility, backfill it with stone, which the undercut was $30,000, but there was a $20,000, or I may have it backwards, $20,000 stone issue on top of it, for a $50,000 increase to the contract. We evaluated what their geotech was saying and what we were seeing on site and said, no, we believe the drying could happen. It required a processing that would typically be required for normal drying. 2 reasons for that. One is you had an in situ material that was naturally wet, wetter than normal. The other was this was happening in April and we had an extreme amount of rain. We didn't get those windows of drying time. Normal soils, if you had a 2 or 3 day window, you could dry and start working on it. Here you already had soils at 20 and 30% moisture. When it gets a rain, it takes more time for it to dry out. So that's part of the delay issue. So that's
also
the $60,000 and $50,000 issue became really an ultimate $18,000 issue.
Right.
But we couldn't get to the bottom of the true time until the end of the project.
And in fact, rain is ultimately still the negotiation part that we are going through with the contractor currently, whether or not. He's basically wanting all of the days that it took to do the work plus the time that it took for us to make the decision. We believe that much of that time, during that time of decision making, it also rained and you can't have both. You can't have the rain days that he wasn't going to be able to work anyway. So that's our argument point. So we feel that this will be a worst case scenario. And ultimately, at the end of the job, you should get back some contingency, just as you typically do on your jobs.
And Dan, I did want to, if you will, I have a question, if you can clarify a little more. The big issue with me is what's unforeseen, like, you know, and that's what I told you today, you know, when you have a project like that, you're relying on a contractor, when they bid a price, they know that when you're in construction, you're gonna have rain. So what, help us all understand what's truly unforeseen, like, because we know rain in February is not unforeseen. So.
No, and this was actually rain in April, but the unforeseen condition was the moisture of the soils that were abnormal for that area. And after our conversation, because we went through this shoot back in April, May, I forgot, and part of my explanation to you was the city, on behalf of the city, we did geotech work. We identified the wet conditions. Now, it was worse than what those two bores indicated once he got out there, but it was close. We should have indicated to him the moisture issue. The problem with it is, between him and I, it wasn't indicated to the contractor during his bid process. He did not become aware of it until after he had put his price down. So he basically wasn't aware of extreme conditions at that site. But had he been aware, it's likely he would have priced the undercutting as he proposed. And so we were able to work with him to minimize the impact of that extra or unanticipated wet conditions, to mitigate how much you had to spend to get through.
So it's not just the rain, it was we knew that.
In situ materials were bad, and he didn't have a good understanding of that based off of the lack of information from us. But the rains did not help. It kept him from normal drying procedures working.
So I think the emphasis there is, had we provided him that information, they would have made a best guess estimate at what they would have to do if they encountered bad soil. We would have an argument still over what they included or what they didn't include. As Dan mentioned, they probably would have included undercutting, but had it been, where would it stop? They would always want to say, well, I didn't have that much in there. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. So we look at this as kind of like it was an opportunity for, at least for us to discover how bad the situation was at the actual time of construction. Because if you try to build in the middle of summer and it's hot and it's a drought, we probably wouldn't have this issue. But because it was super wet, we did have the issue, but it allowed us the opportunity to step back and evaluate the situation right then and there and come up with a better solution that ultimately saved money. So.
And did we know, and I can't remember the timelines, did we know about the soil conditions before the bid specs were done?
We did.
Somewhat.
The specs referred to the geotech report, but the geotech report was not provided to the contractor during the bid procedure. In other words, there's contract documents, specifications, and then typically an appendix.
Our structural engineer designed around the original geotech report.
That's right.
But it didn't get published for the contractor in his bid document. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Usually, in this case, we probably should have included it. But as I mentioned, I feel like had we included it in this case, we probably would have come out, you would have had much higher bids than we had. Even with this change order, you would have had a higher initial bid.
Just because of the unforeseen?
Because they would have seen, oh, there's potentially bad soil here.
We were able to dictate the fix to him, whereas normally he would have had to anticipate his own means of fixing it. Here we were able, because it wasn't included, we were able to dictate to him what the fix could be. So that's where it comes from.
Thank you.
So based off of that, I would request y'all's approval of the change budget, basically increase, and authorization for the mayor to sign the change order document.
Up to 18,000.
Up to not to exceed $18,000.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Burks.
Yes.
Alderman Burks.
Yes.
Alderman Booth.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Calvin.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
All right, next on the agenda is our citizens' agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the citizens' agenda? Please come forward.
question going back to the people speaking in the meeting conversation.
Sure.
And I was just wondering, what is the criteria or distinguishes whether or not you have a public hearing on a topic as opposed to it just being on the agenda and decided?
That's a good question. We know that the budget, we have to have a public hearing on the budget. When there's zoning changes, those have a public hearing. What else, Nick?
Zoning, whenever you do a lien for, you have a hearing on a lien before you file it, zoning, budget.
Like condemned properties,
What's that?
condemned properties.
Condemned properties, that's what I meant, all condemned properties. You give me a couple back, I don't know them all, I guess that's.
Yeah, I was just curious
Yeah.
because I didn't know, at what times we would have a public hearing for something as opposed to it just being on the
Yeah,
agenda.
and those are the more common things you may have noticed. Like when we do the liens, I'll ask for comments from the board, and then I'll ask for comments from the public. So that would be an
Anybody has a
example.
financial interest.
Yeah, so that's the purpose of that, but your budget, zoning changes, and liens, those are the most common that we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that y'all don't want meetings to drag out forever and that, we have a representative government here. I haven't lived in Southaven a long time. I've been in Olive Branch and I frequently would go and attend those meetings. And I know in order to keep order, one thing they would do is if you had something on the agenda that you wanted to speak on, you would sign up and they would know, okay, there's some people here that want to talk about this topic. So they would know, we've got 50 people here, so we're going to have to move fast or whatever. So just a suggestion, because I do think it's great for people to come, and there's not a ton of people here, to come to these meetings who are really interested in what's going on, and I think that's sad, the apathy is just pathetic.
Sure.
But I think
There are
anytime
videos,
you
the
can encourage.
videotapes. The meetings are videotaped.
Right, and a few people watch them,
Yeah.
but I just think anytime that you can encourage your citizens to get
Sure.
involved and to speak, and I understand you've got to have order and control, but like the dialogue we've done the last meeting, I thought was great, and I think y'all all learned something about the ways the ordinance was written and things that y'all might want to look at. So I just wanted to encourage you to not shut all that down completely, keep it orderly, but do it in a way that people can, if there's something that really pertains to them, can share their views and their needs or concerns with the entire board.
I agree, thank you, I agree. And actually, just a little background, in the past, we used to have it to where we required a registration. And what you're saying that you witnessed in Olive Branch, like, the reason for that is we would know, like you said, timing, how many people are going to speak. And then we would also, the benefit of that is there's a lot of things that we can answer those questions immediately. So it saves someone a trip. We can, some of the things that they bring to our attention, we can solve in the same day. And there's many problems throughout the day that I solve before noon that never come to the board, So that makes it more efficient. But no, we love that. And this board has always been, like I said, it's not been a problem. We've always, erred on the side of letting people speak. We want to hear that.
Right.
It's not wanting to hear discussion at all. It's that sometimes it does get into grandstanding. People use these meetings for political purpose sometimes, and that's what we're going to stop. So, but no, we're not trying to cut anyone that has a legitimate question. Again, we certainly want to, welcome that dialogue. Those comments are not geared towards stopping that whatsoever.
Okay, good, because I think it's important to have that interchange and have citizens feel like they can come in and speak.
Sure, I do too. Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is the personnel docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the personnel document as presented on this date.
Second. We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the city attorney's legal update. Nothing tonight. Next on the agenda is utility bill adjustment docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the utility bill adjustment docket as presented on this date.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is, we have two claims dockets. Docket, is there a motion to approve docket 1?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve claims docket number 1 in the amount of $3,760,573.49, including demand checks.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion on docket 1? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Is there a motion to approve claims docket 2?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve claims docket number 2 in the amount of $15,866.51.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Flores on docket 2. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda, is there a motion to determine the need for executive session?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Wheeler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The need this evening is personnel and litigation against the Southampton Police Department and the city in general, and also economic development within the city. Is there a motion to declare executive session?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Wheeler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The mayor and board will now enter executive session.